Welcome to the Energizing India podcast, a program that focuses on electric vehicles in India and how to facilitate faster adoption of electric mobility in India. Today, we welcome back into our studios a CEO who's been with us before and today has changed his business between the 12 months from our last conversation to today. Welcome to the show, Kartikey Hariyani.
Thank you, Ravin. Thank you for having me here.
Kartikey, Chargezone is the company you founded. A ChargePoint Operator operating in India. We had you on our show 12 months ago when you were actually just a startup, and today you come back as India's largest ChargePoint Operator operating fast charging on highways. How has that journey been? What happened?
It's as much thrilling and exciting as one can imagine. It's all boiling down to our original vision, and absolutely there's no pivot to that particular vision. Is to solve the range anxiety problem for electric vehicle owners, which is not just about intra-urban mobility, but more of an intercity travel with a family of four. And here we are now that we are trying to solve a notion that an electric vehicle, electric car can be your first car and not necessarily your second or third car. And Chargezone today, as it expands its public charging network on state highways, national highways, as well as in metros and tier 1 cities, we are still sticking to our original vision that we provide a reliable EV charging as a service to our electric vehicle customers.
Excellent. So, we have deeply sensitive here to the comment you just made. An electric vehicle doesn't need to be your second or third car, it can be your first. And it is our assessment that the present ICE vehicles being bought in 22 will probably be the last cycle of natural ICE decisions. And when these come up for renewal in 3 years or 4 years, the natural choice will be EVs. And so the demand is going to be exponential. Not a lot of people believe that, which is why a lot of your competitors and ChargePoint operators are waiting for the demand to come before they commit significant investments. So you see large announcements of thousands of chargers being tendered, but nobody's actually putting them in. Your company is different. The sorts of volumes that you are demanding on chargers and implementing on the road is breathtaking. And that takes a lot of courage. That takes entrepreneurial risk-taking ability. What is giving you the courage to create this demand? And what process did you go through to say, I'm going to go out and make this happen?
No, I think it's very, very valid point, Ravin. So let's start something probably that started 100 years ago. There was one famous CEO who quoted recently that when 100 years ago, when he said that when we started designing and manufacturing cars, we did not build highways, we did not build refineries, we did not build petrol pumps or gas stations. That was job of somebody else. Now we are those somebody else, in the EV space, to develop and deploy a reliable EV charging network, EV charging infrastructure in the country. And it certainly takes a very entrepreneurial thinking, a bit of guts and gumption to plan and execute it, because setting up an EV charging infrastructure, the word infrastructure is so important out here, because an EV charging network is as I always described it, as an amazing intersection of infra, technology, electricity, renewable energy, customer pricing, marketing mix. There's so much to do in this space. And at Chargezone, we thought that, let's not wait for electric vehicles to appear on the road, because they can only appear on the road if there is a very visible EV charging network available for a customer. Because certainly a customer is not buying a car to drive within Chennai or within Mumbai. He certainly wants to go one day or once in a week somewhere from Mumbai to Lonavala or Pune to Mahabaleshwar, for example. So if there is no EV charging network at all on the public domain, or public charging domain, it is going to be extremely difficult for a customer to take a call. Now, 3 years today, Chargezone is now present in 25 cities. We have just completed 1,000 kilometers of coverage on national highways in India. We are the first company to do so. But certainly, I'm not saying that we are enjoying this particular tag that we are first company to do so. We believe that this need to be a good cascading effect. A dominoes effect can only happen where there are handful of players who will be doing this. Having said that, we believe that there is always going to be a leap of faith. So I like to quote of Superman, who always quote in the movies that when somebody told him about the trust part, then he rather said that it's always a leap of faith and the trust part comes later. So at Chargezone we said, okay, fine, let's start building up. Let's start doing something on the interstates or intercity highways as a statement to the prospective EV owners or the IC owners who want to buy an EV, even for a consideration purpose. If there is a visibility of EV charging network, they'll go for it. And over the last 3 years, we have largely built hubs for captive consumptions of EV fleet. We call it fleet electrification vertical. But our B2C or retail segment just started 6 months ago. And honestly, the market has surprised us completely. We have been taken completely by surprise in terms of the demand the customers have been asking. And the best part is that our very notion of what we call as an unmanned, technology-driven EV charging network or EV charging as a service has been now validated. Our entire idea is sorts of now vindicated by the fact that customer says, hey, it's unmanned charging. We are ready to do so as long as it is reliable. It gives me the power on demand. And well, I certainly enjoy this owning up the EV and driving through highways or within the cities and so on. So Chargezone at Chargezone, I think it's all being focused on one single idea or the overall vision is to create one of the largest EV charging network in the country and the most reliable one.
So I want to probe you on that, Kartikey. 1 month ago, you said you will electrify 10,000 kilometers. And I'm using the word breathtaking because, the Chargezone leaves us feeling that way quite often because you're moving so fast. Yet within 30 days, you have electrified 1,000 kilometers already. So, it seems within this year, you will actually electrify 10,000 kilometers. So there's two questions that come to my mind. The first one is, how are you choosing your highways? Are you doing a heat map to understand where electric vehicles are, or are you going on hope or on instinct? How are you going to choose the remaining 9,000 kilometers for the rest of this year that you will electrify?
So Robin, I guess the selection of the highway or the electrification coverage, I would call it, it is certainly depending upon the heat maps. Yeah. But I guess at the end of the day, when you expand your business or a charging network for that matter, it's just not data. It's also about the possibilities that will come in. There is I think there's so much businesses, different kind of businesses around India have now coined a new term called the Bharat market. The Bharat is the rural India that they are talking about. If you take an example of agriculture equipment and implements or accessories that goes in an agriculture equipment like a tractor, for example, there were a lot of buyers who were farmers based in urban area, but the rural market has surprised post-COVID era. Now, this is one example, but there are so much such similar examples across various sectors of industry. So at Chargezone, we said that fine, let's start with a very simple common sense approach. That pick up those strata of territories or states or interstate areas which are commercially affluent, which are also highly industrialized. And when we begin with that approach, we started with Mumbai, Ahmedabad, for example. Then we did Mumbai, Nashik, Mumbai, Pune, Ahmedabad, Rajkot, or now we just did yesterday Delhi, Jaipur as well. So these are the first picks of the highways. Having said that, yes, there is an intense engagement with the various OEMs. And I'm glad that for the first time, it took 3 years, but various automotive OEMs for electric vehicles have started engaging with us and we engaging with them in terms of understanding that what could be those priorities. Because India is a vast territorial domain, in terms of it's kind of a mini Europe over here, right? We have so much of different culture, languages. The per capita income of various states is different, it varies largely. But at the end of the day, we are on a more of a mission-driven approach over here. That the decision is not just commercial, but enabling e-mobility at large.
Excellent answer, Kartikey. My second question comes to something you mentioned before, which is to be the most reliable, not just the largest highway charging company, but the most reliable charge point operator. Yet, when you look at the context of that infrastructure, there's so many layers that need to come together. Power, distribution, telecom, because you have communications, you have the resilience of the charge box, but you have your own paywall, you have your own CMS. How has Chargezone gone about ensuring that all of this come together in a symphony of perfection so that the customer has a reliable experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess I like the word you use, symphony, or let's call it an orchestra, right? Or an orchestrated approach, I would call it. An EV charging network is generally a 4-stack layer for us. We start with the selection of the site and the power infra around it. That's the first layer, followed by a charging equipment, which is your second layer, followed by technology layer, because these chargers are all IoT enabled. These are all IoT devices in our network, and hence they are unmanned as well. And the fourth is your app and the billing management. So when we look at a 4-layered approach to this, yes, it is brick and mortar work that goes behind the scenes. And that's entirely the idea, that because an EV driver can be a layman, he can be a technical guy, he can be a commerce student, he can be anybody. So just like the way it, like for example, your smartphone are so much intuitive in nature, that really formal training is not required to operate whether it's an iPhone or an Android. So that's a way, that's a very ubiquitous approach, as we call it, in terms of what we call as oversimplification to be done for an EV charging as an experience. So what does it mean now? It means that a lot of heavy lifting is required at each and every location. Internally we call it, one location at a time. Every location that we select is in partnership with a host who have great locational advantage. They have amenities, they have great food, clean washrooms, and so on and so forth. Now having done the Reiki, we go for the selection of that site, and then comes a very difficult task, and that is getting the power, enough power from the local discom. Now, I won't say that in India it is difficult. It's a global phenomenon, because the utilities per se, it's all about brick and mortar approach in terms of civil works, in terms of laying down the cables, just like the telecom towers were done in the past, or the landlines were established in the past. It's always a difficult work. Now, so we decided to take a very holistic approach for each site, and that's the reason we call it one site at a time, because each site is a mini project by itself. And we use all kind of tools to track the sites, to track the performance, and so on and so forth. Yet, providing a reliable EV charging also means that you are ensuring that you have electricity available 24/7. And after all, it's a grid. And a grid can be as reliable or sometimes unreliable, because a grid is a huge national network formation. You can have blackouts in New York as well. You had one, by the way. Yeah, you had even in Mumbai. So and then since now you have more digital relays and so sophistication, one thing can trip another and so on. So we decided to bring in energy storage as a backup to this entire EV charging as a service. So I guess it is boiling down to several formative elements, such as storage, such as grid reliability, even in future the renewable energy mix, as I quoted earlier as well. And at the end of the day, if the customer turns up at our charging station, we cannot say we have run out of petrol or gas. Yeah, we have to ensure that there is a charging service or EV charging available as a service all the time that he wants.
So, Kartikey, today you're in Pune, you're with us in Energizing India Studios, but you actually came here because of the grand unveiling of the new Chargezone dedicated look charger. I'm interested, firstly, whether you liked what you saw, but more importantly, why is it important for a ChargePoint operator such as Chargezone to have its own dedicated look, and what do you look for?
Yeah. So I guess Ravin, it all started with when we decided 3 years ago that Chargezone will be, as I said, EV charging company, which also means that we'll deliver electricity as a service, which also means that Chargezone will bring in the investment, will develop the network, and along with our own technology, which enables this charging network. Now, having said that, it's always easier said than done when we talk about something very akin to a petrol pump network. So it all started where we also in the early days, when we were traveling and doing the Reiki and understanding the EV charging industry or industry players in other countries like Western Europe, in United States. And it comes so natural that if you were driving an IC engine car for the last 20-30 years and you want to see a particular petrol pump of a particular brand, it's always visible to you. Let's say an Indian Oil will be different from Shell, will be different from HPCL, and so on and so forth. So we started asking ourselves that how do we bring in what you call as a DNA? So on the surface of it, it's a very simple way to describe it, that similar look or similar experience, similar GUI, etc. So the decision came little off late, but probably just in time for us when we started in this year, calendar year 2022, that why don't we talk to Ador and bring in, or first define the DNA, and thereby bringing in a lot of consistency in terms of the charging station. So it was not about just the station itself in terms of layout and amenities, but the charger itself, because the interaction between the user and the charging station is actually with the charger and not with the charging station. Yeah, he goes there, he or she is using the charger, using our app, and finally they have the interaction on the GUI or the little screen, which looks like an ATM screen onto the charger. So this decision, which took it took us few months to come to a decisive point. And today, as Ador helps us to bring a consistent design in terms of the looks of the charger, the experience between the end user and the charger, because as I said, it's an unmanned charging network. The EV owner, EV driver will be using the charger by themselves. So it's very important that it is so ubiquitous, easy to use, just like when talk to the water, you are able to understand the interface so easily. And I guess the decision that we took with Ador to collaborate and evolve the family of chargers, and we have just started with a couple of ratings, and I'm sure it will be, the journey is going to take us longer as we increase the ratings of the charger depending upon the market demands and all. And I think it's a great opportunity for both the companies, that is Chargezone and Ador, to collaborate and participate on this newfound market opportunity.
We are very proud to have been able to deliver something that is also going to be exported to Europe and exported to America, and very excited to see the growth that Chargezone will be experiencing in the next year, given the sorts of kilometers you're talking about. You had mentioned that India is like Europe, like a mini Europe. In fact, it is like Europe, and which means that different cultures, different rules, different regulations, jurisdictions. Do you see a Chargezone evolving into a national CPO, or do you see the CPO market always being regional, with companies like Chargezone perhaps dominating one or two areas and then somebody else dominating another two? What are your intentions, and how are you going to get there?
Right. So see, Ramin, at the end of the day, when we look at the scale that the Indian market offers, it's very, very audacious in nature. Instead of you becoming, or for that matter, Chargezone, we think about becoming a regional player. We initially started following where e-mobility took us. We have done, apparently it feels that only Delhi NCR can be the market, or apparently it feels that only Western India, or probably some metro cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai can be the market. But guess what? We now are present in even a city like Patna, or even those 16 cities in the state of Uttar Pradesh for electric buses. So it's sometimes very difficult to believe for any layman out there that he can't fathom that these are also the cities that offers e-mobility as a market. But it has just happened. So with this experience behind us, we are very clear in our vision and mission is that we shall be a pan-India player. We are already in 25 cities in India, that is spread across 11 states in the country. And we believe that being a national player is a task by itself, but we only need to replicate the success that we have got in early stages in few states, and then expanding into other, even relatively lesser known states for e-mobility. It could be Northeast, it could be Kashmir, for example, because as human, we are mobile all the time. Mobility is a basic need of a human being. and e-mobility is a new avatar of that mobility needs. So we are just asking ourselves why we limit to a particular region where the entire market in India offers you to come and say, set up this EV charging networks. We like to adopt an EV and use Chargezone for our charging needs.
So Kartikey, in this market, it's very difficult to forecast the future. 1 year is a lifetime. But I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, what is your vision for Chargezone in 3 years, in 1,000 days? Where, you talked about being in the US as well. You're getting a lot of demand from there. Where do you see Chargezone in 1,000 days from today?
Yes, I guess it's something that we have also 1,000 days we have defined for ourselves. We have just finished the first 1,000 days, and like many of us, we have survived COVID. We have survived lockdowns, several challenges. Across the board. It's not just supply chain challenges. There have been challenges on human resources as well, in terms of their physical health, mental health, and so on. So naturally, the pace of expansion sometimes reduces. It's also at times frustrating that you see the demand is coming up and you are not able to cater to that, address it in time. But yes, having said that, the next 1,000 days are extremely important for us. From the current 700 charging stations that we have, we would like to go at least 15-fold. In other words, 10,000 charging stations. In other words, roughly 20 to 25,000 charging points in the next 1,000 days, which means the asking rate is 25 points a day, which itself is a very, very humongous target because it's not easy. It looks very low number from the Indian market point of view. But considering the challenges on execution, challenges on the demand of take, and obviously a constant need of capital and so on and so forth, we believe that we need to deliver this as a mission critical. In fact, we have created more like a war room in our office, where we have broken down all the levels of internal controls and bureaucracy, rather, saying that if you want to act fast, you need to empower even a technician on the ground to take a decision, or a BD guy who will go and sign up a location with a prospective host. So we have decentralized our decision making process. We have decided to sign up more partners. What we don't compromise absolutely in all certain terms is that the location needs to be great. The partnership need to be long term, and at the same time, these are all public charging stations. So for example, we have tied up with some leading hotel chain in India. We said, we accept all your conditions, except we only have one condition that charging station should be a public charging station, and it is not confined for certain select class of customers. So important decisions, some tough decisions we have taken, but it's very clear that in India we will reach to this milestones of 10,000 charging stations, or roughly 25,000 charging points over the next 1,000 days, and in parallel initiate our rollout in North America, in UK, and maybe Australia. So these are the countries which are pretty much very close to us in terms of the like-minded or the like-minded people that you get there. No barriers of language per se. And yeah, absolutely. And those countries, and these are the countries where the EV offtake is now coming to a very matured level, where multiple OEMs have launched their electric vehicles, it resonates with our liking for super fast charging stations, and that's what we specialize in. Yeah.
So it's a hard ask, 25,000 stations, Kartikey, and one of the things that you'll need together is funding. You've had significant success with all the announcements that we've seen with your recent funding rounds, far more than anyone else in India, I think, so far. And yet, your plans will be very hungry and thirsty for the fuel or energy, pun unintended, in terms of funding. So, are you considering an IPO? Is this going to be an offshore IPO on the Nasdaq at $500 million valuation? Where are we headed on this?
Yeah. Maybe a unicorn. Yeah, but I mean, I guess it all depends upon, as I said, I think this next 3 years, next 1,000 days, extremely crucial, and we'll take a call down the line. Yeah, what we'll do later on, whether it will be a strategic collaboration with large players, or it will be an IPO by itself. Because at the end of the day, we believe Chargezone as a standalone brand will bring a lot of success and deliver more value to all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, rather than being part of some corporate entity. Otherwise, the opportunity starts getting polarized, and we want to avoid that. Globally, if you see, the various EV charging companies who have made tremendous success like Ionity in Europe or ChargePoint in US. They have been a neutral companies altogether. Yeah, they have really created, or rather orchestrated a very holistic approach in terms of what we have always started doing it. And they've been there for a decade, and they have tasted a tremendous success, and they are already on a next level where we have already started for. For example, Ionity is focusing only on super fast charging on highways, which we have found ourselves in such a peer-to-peer network with them. Of course, we don't compete; we are in different geographies, but it's very, very interesting play that whatever we have thought or started on the ground has got validated somewhere else in other part of the world. So that gives a lot of confidence. And coming to your point, question about what valuation or what market or IPO, etc. I think it will. We leave it to the future. We have not seen that part, at least today. What we see here is locations, great location to put charging station. That's our focus.
We'll leave it to the finance gods in ways. So two final questions, Kartikey. One of the problems, particularly with cars, not buses, electric buses, is today if you wanted to buy a car, there's only 4 available, and there's 3 or 4 coming in the high end, 50 lakhs plus. There's Volvo, Mercedes, who've announced, BMW, and then in the more economical end, MG says they'll have a sub 15 lakh car. Tata says they'll have 8 or 9. But precious at the moment in 2022 is just 4. Right, you've got the Tigor, the Nexon, the MG ZS EV, and the Hyundai Kona. What is your message to OEMs who really are sitting on the fence right now because the demand exists, it's pent up, but there's not much options? What would be your message to the OEM decision makers listening to our podcast on what they need to do, or what you would like to see as a ChargePoint operator?
Yeah. Surely, I'm not the person going to ask them what they need to do. I'm sure they know it. But let me just through this podcast take this opportunity to at least pass on the message. What we have seen in the last 6 months, the Indian customer, is looking for an EV. He needs more options. He wants an EV which is not necessarily kind of an entry-level pricing point. He's ready to shell out 10 to 12 rupees, 10 to 12 lakh rupees in terms of the budget. There are so many business owners, micro entrepreneurs who are willing to take a call on EV because it also offers tax breaks on the basis of 40% depreciation in the first year. Now, having with those calculations in place, there is absolutely no. It will probably be an understatement to say that whether the demand will pick up or not, because the customers are waiting. Post-COVID, there is also what you have seen is a conscious effort by an Indian taxpayer, Indian consumer, to evaluate an EV on a serious note. It's not just 100 rupees petrol is motivating him. There's also that's a push factor, but there's a genuine pull factor. As India makes a transition to a younger age, to millennials and Gen Zs of the world, who are far more conscious, in terms of the circular economy, in terms of recycling, in terms of resource optimization, and so on and so forth. So with this, I will just rather request OEMs that at least they can announce their plans, because most of them have even refrained from announcing their plans. And that's fine if it's 2023. If it is even better if it's 2024. As Chargezone, we have said, fine, and for the next, if you are going to put, let's say, hundreds of crores on the ground for the next 2 years and we have to wait, we are creating an enough staying power to wait for the next 2 years for sure. But having said that, in hindsight, I personally believe that 2022, the calendar year, looks to be an important year as a base year, a baseline year in terms of, I'm sure the OEMs will drop the plans, will develop the products. They may have a prototype or a pre-series kind of production and so on. And then 2023 will be more of a launch year for most of the models, and 2024 is where the demand will see picking up, bright.
Absolutely. 2024 is the year of confluence, in our opinion, as well, because it's the year the first gigafactories come on stream in India making lithium battery cells, which will be feeding a lot of the cell packers today who are importing from China. So everything almost comes together, and 2024 looks like the year of exponential growth. And it's really exciting to see that you are positioning your company 2 years ahead of that for the big growth that's going to come. One final question then, Kartikey. It's often said India works despite its government, and yet in the EV sector, the government has been incredible. It's moved very quickly, put in place amazing policies and regulations, updated FAME 2, created the PLI schemes that are not only for lithium battery production, but also localizing a lot of EV value chain in India.
That's right.
From your perspective now versus when we met 12 months ago, again, the same question, if you were the Prime Minister for a day today and could make any decisions to help faster adoption of electric mobility in India, what would that decision be given the context today in 2022?
Rather 2022, or also probably we need to reflect what's going on globally in terms of the war scene between Ukraine and Russia is also an important angle to be considered. Yes, I'm pretty much on a tight spot when you say that if I'm going to be a prime minister for a day. But yes, from the EV policy point of view, I would put in this way that while the government, both the state and both the central government and several state governments have already put their best foot forward, is always in terms of implementation. I would rather convene a stakeholder meeting from time to time, because government's approach is all about governance. It can lay out a red carpet welcome for you, for the industry. It is industry guys who have to take the call, whether to do a particular business, whether to launch a particular product, and so on and so forth. We are already probably a couple of decades late in terms of EV adoption at large, considering that we have always been short of natural resources such as crude oil, and also in the new age avatar of EV, we are going to be short of lithium as well. This entire decision of EV as a mix, EV policy doesn't mean that we are doing away with IC engines. As India, we have been very careful in committing at COP26 at Glasgow in terms of our net zero targets and so on and so forth. Though we have been panned very badly by the rest of the world, saying that we are not doing enough, we are not setting enough, and so on. So as a country, we are not, or as a government, we are not saying that we are doing away with the IC engine vehicle, because the automotive industry is one of the largest employer in the country, contributes heavily to the GDP as well. But EV adoption is a need of an hour for the country, and the right mix is what is important. So one target we have set for ourselves that by 2030, for every 3 cars sold or 3 vehicles sold, minimum 1 vehicle has to be an electric vehicle. And that's a very practical vision. We're not saying it's 100% electric by 2030. We are saying it's going to be a mix with petrol, diesel, CNG, and LNG also now, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so if I have to do one thing right now is quarterly review, because this industry is going to move so fast. It is going to be like a black swan moment that happened 15 years ago between a feature phone and a smartphone, right? Nobody thought it was until 2007, I don't want to quote the name, but a very famous CEO of one of the world's largest software company even said that he doesn't see a smartphone going to make any headway. Now, guys at that level also were proved wrong by the smartphone industry and the way the consumers around the world adopted smartphones. I think EV is coming to that stage, or what I call is just about to enter the S curve, the famous S curve in terms of non-linear growth as well. So I think that is, involving the stakeholders and reviewing them periodically is the one big decision I will take today if I were the Prime Minister for a day.
Very insightful answer. Kartikey, you're a highly energetic man, and it's always great to have a conversation with you. Lots of learnings. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us, and we look forward to the next time you're at the Artemis studios of Energizing India in Pune.
Yeah, absolutely, Ramin. And I would like to just on a closing point, pass on one compliment to Team Ador Decathlon. So basically, I'm a product guy. 20 years ago, when I started my career, I was into something called product lifecycle management. It was called CAD/CAM in those days. Now famously referred to as digital PLMs. And it was always about time to market when we got involved into product design, development, engineering, prototyping, and serial production, and obviously customer service and support. So I've seen that all, obviously in a very different class of product. But yes, compliments to your team. It is not just that I'm on podcast today, or you have developed one of the great looking, or we rather unveiled one of the great looking fast DC charger in your campus today. But in just 90 days to bring up a product like this, which exceeds the expectations of the inputs that we gave, of our exceeding the expectations that we had from your team, and that is very, very remarkable. And I'm sure there are great days ahead for Ador Decathlon, for Chargezone, and also anybody who's involved into e-mobility ecosystem in the country. So wish you all the best, and looking forward for more products coming out of Ador for us and for other customers too. Yeah. So thank you so much for having me here today, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Kartikey. You too.